everybody, welcome back to video number 3. Today I'll give you a little bit of the backstory and how we ended up moving forward. So what we determined was not only my father-in-law had dementia, but my mother-in-law did as well. And I don't think any of us really realized the extent, or at least my husband and I didn't, because my in-laws traveled a lot and they went to visit grandkids around the state and the next state over, and so we really didn't see them like some of our siblings, or my in-laws, my husband's siblings saw them. They saw things a little bit before us, or maybe the severity of it, because we just talked to them on the phone and they were always running around. So we didn't really get it, and then she started to do crazy things. Like, she would ask my husband things that were like from 30 years, oh, did you know this person, and wanted to introduce us to people that he'd known for decades. And we really realized that it was worse than we thought, and that we absolutely had to move them. We had to get them into assisted living. We had no idea how to do that, none. I started to look online a little bit, and you know, people wanted a diagnosis, so the trick was to get my mother-in-law diagnosed. The issue with my mother-in-law is she's really difficult. She's a character, she was a character, and nobody was ever going to tell her what to do. So it created a lot of issues for us. She was adamant that there was absolutely nothing wrong with her. And when you said, you know, gently, I'm not sure your memory is working quite like it used to, she would go, it's your father. It's taking care of him. It's the stress. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. In fact, we couldn't use her name and the word dementia in a sentence when she was around, because she didn't have it. Gosh darn it. She'd be the first to tell you nothing was wrong. To the point where when the subject was broached, I will give you an exact quote. Jesus, what, people think I can't wipe my own ass anymore? Yeah, she was a character. But never ever until the day she died did she ever believe anything was wrong with her. So now we have a dementia patient taking care of a dementia patient, and she's driving, which is really scary. This whole thing with there's kind of no real, I guess, hard fast line as to when the government, the DMV, whatever, says that someone can't drive. But if you have a seizure, you can't drive for 6 months, and it's kind of weird, and it's my pet peeve, and that'll be definitely another video about dealing with dementia and driving and judgment issues. But to us, what really unnerved us was, when was my mother-in-law going to confuse a red light, a yellow light, a green light, and hurt or injure or kill someone? Yes, they could have been killed, we get it, but even in New York, I believe it was this past fall or this past summer, somewhere in there, 3 young men in their 20s were headed home from Casino Niagara, dead of the night, and a person in their 80s with dementia got on the throughway going the wrong way, hit him head on, and I believe all of them were killed. I'm pretty sure all 4 of them died. Just stuff like that. I mean, we're trying to prevent something, and what we found out was we have no say. There's nothing legally we could do about it, which was so frustrating. So we knew, the only thing we knew was we had to get her diagnosed, which was hard enough. Her primary care guy kind of knew that she had it anyways. It was real obvious to him. But we started to just, oh, let us go to the doctor with you. Why don't, we'll do this, and why don't you go in and I'll sit with Dad over here while you guys go in, and we kind of worked it that way a little bit. And so the doctor said, I need to give her a brain scan just to rule out strokes or MS, which I can't imagine MS at 80 something, but strokes, MS, anything really obvious, brain tumors, things like that. And if it comes back negative, which it did, she will get a dementia diagnosis, which she did. But in that, it was still, we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know how much money they had. We didn't know how much money they had to work with. We knew nothing, and we were trying to find out things, just even from finding bank statements in their house, just to see what they were getting. And it was really difficult, and we didn't know what to do, and we had no right to their money. So my mother-in-law had planned that, well, my in-laws had planned their estate, done a little bit of general estate planning with a firm that her cousin worked at. And the cousin was not an estate attorney, so what I'm about to say is not at all a slam against her. But she was an estate attorney. She was the executrix on the will, but she worked in a huge firm, and so the estate attorney or the elder care lawyer, I don't know, somebody told her how to start this whole thing. And before I go any further, you need a disclaimer when you talk about legal things. In fact, I even have it written right here. I'm going to read it with you. I think I'm going to post it on the screen as well. My legal disclaimer. Neither Deb Procopio, that's me, nor the Dementia Road YouTube channel or any related affiliates are giving legal advice. We're not giving legal advice. The materials presented are for informational purposes only. It is not intended to provide legal counsel or legal advice. You should consult your own attorney before making any legal decisions or transactions. I am not a lawyer. Not even close. The information contained in this video is for entertainment purposes only. I am relating my personal experience, which is not your personal experience. So therefore, before you make any decisions, you should consult a lawyer of your choosing who is aware of the laws in your state as well as any laws concerning your specific situation. Neither myself nor the Dementia Road or anyone affiliated with us will not be held responsible for your legal decisions. I know, that was the thrill-a-minute plane ride, but it needs to be done. So if I can't give you legal advice, what am I doing? Relaying my experiences, or our experiences, and giving you just some insight of questions. Like, just make a list of questions like, what are the laws in my state? Where do I get a lawyer? What do I need to know? Like a lot of questions. We didn't even know how to ask questions. We just sat there and went, okay, that sounds good, because we didn't know. So what happened was, my mother-in-law's cousin said, I talked to somebody in the firm, and what you first need, number one, is you're going to need a power of attorney. There are several types of power of attorneys. I honestly don't even know what kind they wrote, other than it's a New York State short form. But there are general powers of attorney. There are non-durable powers of attorney, durable powers of attorney, springing powers of attorney, and in some states there are health care or health, I really don't know, New York doesn't have it, but you can get a power of attorney written with your health wishes. New York State has a health proxy. We don't get a power of attorney for that. But she said, number one, that's what you're going to need to do. So we said, she's not going to sign it. We had already talked to her because there was nothing wrong with her. She didn't need anyone to deal with her finances. She was perfectly fine. None of the bills were late. Nothing. So because she just loved this cousin, the cousin said, I'll come up, I'll bring the notary, we'll chat. You know, sometimes things are all in the presentation. You're going to find this out with dementia. You might not be able to get them to do something, but somebody else may really be good at it. And so the cousin came up and she sat down with the paperwork and she explained the stuff, and she did it in a way that was very non-threatening. We were threatening. We were going to take her. She was very afraid we were going to take my father-in-law and split them up. And that wasn't really the case. That wasn't what we were looking to do, but she was sure that was what we were going to do. So what we ended up doing was, the cousin came and the cousin said, I have this paperwork. It's part of your estate. You really, here's why you want to sign it. You want to make sure that you get taken care of, and you want to make sure dad gets taken care of, or her husband, you know, he gets taken care of, and if anything happens, you wouldn't want anything. And she explained it, and she was so good with her that they both went, oh, okay, give me a pen. Right down they went, which was huge for us. Now, our power of attorney was written with 2 signatures. You're going to have to check with the laws of your state and how these work. So technically, there were 2 power of attorneys, my husband and the lawyer, the cousin lawyer. They can be written sometimes where you need both signers. Two. Every time you do something, you need 2. That's tough. Which it was not written that way. That was not the way they had it written. But sometimes they can do that. They can force you to get 2 signatures to do anything. But usually you want a backup. If you have a good lawyer, they'll tell you, our lawyer said you need a backup in case something happens to you. Like, we don't think of that, but what if something happens to us or something very serious in our family happens? You know, I'm talking about parents in this case. We'll talk about spouses a little bit later in another video, but in this case I'm talking about trying to deal with your parents. So you're going to, you know, we got the signature, which meant in our case it opened up a lot of doors. I will discuss the power of attorney probably on a separate video, because otherwise this one's going to get real long. So the person that signs the power of attorney, my in-laws, they need to be competent. Okay, don't go like, yay, they're not competent. Okay, no, that's not how this works. They need to understand it. Yes, it's dementia. How much do they understand? Hard to say. But my in-laws said that they did understand, and that was it. The lawyer signed it, notarized it, things like that. We talked to the lawyer kind of off to the side that night and said, you know, they're driving and we need to move them and things like that. And she said, let me let you in on a little helpful hint here. You cannot force them to give up driving, and you cannot force them to leave their house. And I said, what? What do you mean? The woman's driving a car. She could kill somebody. Yep, that's what I was told. Yep, that's exactly what could happen. What do you mean we can't force them out of their house? They're not eating correctly. They're not competent. What are you leaving us to do? And she said, by law, what you have to do is have them declared in a court of law. I don't think it's incompetent in New York State. I believe it's incapable, maybe is. I don't know what the legal wording is, but I guess we all get the point. The point is, they really are unable to take care of themselves, their finances, their houses, whatever they own. In order to do that, number one, you need a physician that gives them the diagnosis and says they have dementia and they're no longer really capable, they need help. And I would assume you would want a lawyer to take that to the court for you. I don't know if you can represent yourself in this case. Like I said in my disclaimer, you're going to have to find out, and you're going to have to know the laws and the rules in your state. So in that, she said what you would have to do is, number one, get a doctor to state that there's an issue. Number two, here's what I've heard though. And I guess it really depends on the doctor and how well the people relate to their doctor and how long they've gone to the doctor. We've heard people say, oh, they're not that bad. The doctors, no, she's really doing good. No, I watched it with my own mother. She's really not doing good. Just because she can sit here, hold a conversation, it sounds like all good and whatever. She's telling you things that are total lies because she's making up a conversation. But you don't know that because you don't know them. Because you don't know my mother. And they do things like that. My mother-in-law was so good at hiding her dementia that the day that we did move them, I went next door to their neighbors. They've been neighbors for like 40 years and said, I just want to let you know that we're moving them today. I said, are you aware that she has dementia as well? And the neighbors all went, you're kidding. But as they sat for a second, all of a sudden you could see the light bulb come on and they started to make the connection. I said, I know she's been blaming him, but the issue is her. They both have it and they are both on their way to assisted living today. So you're dealing with people who really don't know them on a consistent level. My mom would be like, oh yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, so my medical history. So I had cancer a couple times, lost all my hair, but I recovered. I have no idea where she got that from. She never had cancer, but she sounds like she's speaking real truth. And if you don't know her and no one is there to tell the truth, they don't know. So the doctors sometimes go, no, they're not that bad. Yeah, they're beyond bad. It's tough, but if they already know or they're seeing somebody, that's helpful. So I would then assume that probably a lawyer would have to present that to a judge. And at that point, it's up to the judge to determine whether or not they're going to give you a guardianship for your parents. So that's how that all works. I think this is kind of short, today, because I want to get into a little bit of what power of attorneys can and can't do. Again, there will be a legal disclaimer. I will show you what ours looks like in New York State. So what you're going to need to do, this is your homework. I'm going to give you some homework. Number one, first thing you need to do, the state that you live in, you need to look and see if you have something called the FALIA law. I call it FALIA law, I guess it's called. Over or approximately half of the states in the Union, as well as Puerto Rico, last I knew, had these things called FALIA laws. And FALIA laws make the children responsible for the nursing home costs of their parents or their medical expenses and other things. I have read a lot about them, but I am not going to give my opinion. You will need to find out if your state is. That does not mean you can't qualify for Medicaid. Medicaid is a different thing. The feds work a little different than the states and things like that. But you're definitely going to want to know that to start there. And how does that affect you? So you always need to keep that in mind. What state are you in? How do they enforce those things? So number one, do you have FALIA laws? Number two, do you think you could get your parents to sign a power of attorney? The sooner, if they get a diagnosis early where they're just forgetful, but they're functional, but they're forgetful and they forget appointments, a lot of times, unless they're like my mother-in-law, then good luck with that one. But a lot of times when they're in that state, they understand. My mother was very much like, let me get this straightened out for you because I don't want you to end up with a nightmare that you ended up with your in-laws. And so she was really very, very good about that. So look into things like that. Look into whether your state needs a healthcare proxy or a health power of attorney, and just start to snoop around and see what you can find on that. Also, if you cannot find an attorney, look for free legal counsel in your area. There's a lot of councils on the aging. There's the Alzheimer's Association. They might be able to help you out, but I would definitely head in that direction. So that's it for today. Have a great day.